Hi there, welcome to the program. Joining me on the panel tonight, E-Safety Commissioner Julie Inman-Grant, who worked for Twitter and Microsoft, but now fights to protect us from online harm. You may know him as the host of The Feed and download this show. It's Mark Fennell. In Melbourne, activist Sally Rugg, who played a leading role in the campaign for marriage equality. Tradies who packed in their jobs to become Instagram heroes. They call themselves the Inspired Unemployed. They are Matt Ford and Jack Steele. Cyber psychologist Jocelyn Brewer is with us tonight and also answering some of your questions. Tristan Harris from the hugely popular Netflix documentary The Social Dilemma. Jocelyn, is it built into the model?
In terms of the actual social media platforms, there's something about engaging and, I guess, having that interaction that makes us fire up. But when we talk about young people and the skills that they actually need to navigate that world, a lot of this is actually built into the Australian curriculum, believe it or not, in the capabilities, things like the ethical understanding, the ICT capability, which actually includes ethical use of technology as a part of that. And I think without, putting more on teachers to actually have to teach in the curriculum, that's all there. And in fact, we as adults probably need those lessons just as much as the screen ages do. But
do we even understand the world that exists now? I mean, we're sort of struggling as a society, I think, to even describe what's happening, this sort of proliferation of false information, fakes, lies, harassment. If we can't really get a handle of it, how can we teach children how to live in it?
Sure, and I think the thinking skills that underpin the literally barrage of information and that tsunami of information that's coming at us each day. So part of that is the capabilities, the cognitive skills that I think sometimes we forget that the technology in our skull is just as kind of, totally powerful as what's being created here. And we need to take back control of that, I guess, which is the whole point of this documentary.
So the question is about fake news, the misinformation.
Why do you think there are more studies against social media than highlighting the benefits of it?
Jocelyn.
Oh, the research question is a tricky one. So when we talk about the risks and benefits or the correlation data, sometimes showing that using things like Instagram correlate with poor mental health outcomes, they are correlations and they're not causative. So part of what drives, I guess, sometimes research is a whole nother question. One of the responses to this would be to get people and researchers to actually pre-register what they're looking for. So we can't have researchers kind of cherry-picking bits of data. And a famous example, I guess, of that is a piece of data where they show that the correlation or the negative effect size between using social media and young people's mental health is, it's actually 0.04%. So very, very little if you're talking about statistics. If we compared listening to music with kids' mental health, there's actually a bigger negative effect size there. But we're not talking about listening to music and having these sorts of negative impacts.
Good evening and welcome to this special Vivid edition of Q&A. I'm Tony Jones, here to answer your questions tonight. The Chief Executive of the CSIRO, Larry Marshall. Cyber psychologist Jocelyn Brewer, who argues for a healthier relationship with technology. Rapper, musician and media entrepreneur Adam Briggs. The co-founder of Australian software giant Atlassian, Mike Cannon-Brookes, and broadcaster and actor Faustina Agoli. Please welcome our panel.
We're not going to sort of slow down the march of technology in a global level, but we can still choose to some extent what's allowed and not allowed in Australia.
We're going to come back to that question a little later in more detail. Jocelyn, what do you think? We're talking freedom of the press, we're talking about the Orwellian nature of control.
It sounds a lot like a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah. Our next question comes from Tara Hodge. Jocelyn, your special subject.
Yeah, I'm a mum of a 2-year-old as well, or a little girl as well, and I constantly am asked questions around how we have kind of a healthy relationship with technology and we scroll more healthy habits, I guess, and more healthy hashtags. So some of the strategies that I really think we need to put into place is teaching media literacy and digital literacy so that young people understand that a lot of what shows up in your social media feed is not real life, and that real life is probably not that Instagrammable and not really something that we want to be looking at all the time. There's a lot of research that shows we can't have deep and meaningful relationships with 7,000 people, maybe 7, You know, who are the people that you can call when you're in a really tricky spot? They're the kinds of relationships we want to be fostering, and recognising that our friends online are really just people who are kind of creeping out on us sometimes, not in the most healthy way.
Faustina, what do you think?
I wholeheartedly agree with you, Jocelyn.
Doesn't it feel good when you tick something off?
Especially with a really thick marker.
Yes.
I
yeah,
really find that
thicker the
getting the
better.
thick marker is the way to do it. I really like an app called Super Better. Super Better uses the science of games to help you actually get a goal, right, and chase that goal, and uses allies and power-ups and different ways to actually play on your psychology to get the goal. Not just make the goal and dream about it, but take some action.
Some of the others?
Freedom and moment apps, these are the ones which will kick you out of your social media sites and help you manage your digital distractions.
Wow. That's a
because
good
some
thing.
of the biggest distraction, or the biggest procrastinating tool is access to the
I'll
internet.
just go and see what's happening on Instagram that moment.
I'm about to go and book something, but oh look, I've got all these notifications.
Just quickly, what's Chore Wars?
Chore Wars is really fun. Chore Wars is where you set your household up as a team and you win points for doing all the crappy jobs, and the points are then associated with some sort of reward. The learning and the engagement and connection that you have as a family when you go out, you know, to dinner, or you go to the movies together, or do activities together, is actually lost because parents can be working really hard in order to pay for the cost of the fees to go to coaching.
Unable to convince his parents that he doesn't need coaching, Shorju has now organised a petition calling for an inquiry into the industry in New South Wales.
Thinking about excessive coaching, we could compare that to excessive gaming. Lots of something at the detriment to our whole well-being isn't very useful. And some research actually says that socialising and having a connection to a community is just as important for mental health and well-being as something like nutrition.
That focusing on marks alone leaves students ill-equipped for life after high school.
For kids, they've really just memorised essay after essay and they have very prescriptive responses. When you get to university, all of that support is stripped away and you're left on your own. And the kids who maybe haven't had all of that flourish much better at university than the kids who are used to it.
That is definitely.